Let's see who's sponsoring tonight's Hazmat Guys Roundtable. Hazmat 101 Consultants. Hazmat 101 Consultants and their instructors can provide quality consulting and virtual or in-person hazardous materials training for your agency. Owner and lead instructor Bob Cascignano is also available for lecturing at your fire or hazmat conference and has in fact done many speaking engagements across the country. Visit their site at www.hazmatconsultants.com or email Bob Cascignano at bob@hazmat101consultants.com. For over 20 years, K&R Plaques have had the pleasure of helping clients choose awards for the people they want to honor. Their state-of-the-art equipment allows clients to design, customize, and personalize the awards they choose for that special someone. With one of the largest selections of plaques, awards, trophies, and clothing apparel, they can deliver quality products to satisfy any customer needs. No order is too big or too small. Visit their website at www.knrplaques.com or email at sales@knrplaques.com. Responder Training. RTE is the leading company in delivering propane training along with emergency response equipment. Responder Training has many propane flaring kits, water injection kits, accessories, and replacement parts available. They also sell the only commercially available 1-inch propane flare kit, appropriately named the Dragon Slayer, because size does matter. Contact our good friend, owner instructor Ron Huffman for more information. You can reach him at 765-524-4848. You can email Ron at respondertraining.rdh.gmail.com or peruse his website at respondertraining.com. If you'd like to sponsor the show and help keep live hazmat conversations coming in the future and help send at least one lucky participant to a national level hazmat conference, send an email to bob@thehazmatguys.com and he'll send you the information. Thanks a lot. Now on with the show.
All right. Welcome, Hazmateers, to this episode of the Hazmat Roundtable, the only interactive show that lands on the X and in the hot zone where everybody has a seat to the table. I'm Bobby Salvis, and I'm joined here with the regular cast of characters here. I am with Mike Monaco, who is in my screen to the bottom. I got Jay-Z, the illustrious Jeff Zintak, and I have this gentleman.
The incredible, edible Rick Emery.
Rick Emery. Oh, look at him. And he is, Bob Cascignano is off on assignment tonight. He is excused from his service tonight, but nonetheless, he will be joining us in spirit, and I'm sure on the radio or at least on the car ride wherever he's going. Welcome, Rick. Welcome, guys. How are you guys?
Hello, boys.
Good.
Awesome.
Good.
Hi, Rick.
So, awesome stuff. We've been talking to Rick offline for quite a while about the impressive background, the incredible
Not my background, my background.
That is insane. That's pretty cool. But we brought you on to like kind of talk about, like, we've been kind of going through a lot of the what happened back in the day stuff. But I know Jay-Z wanted to kind of open up with a question. What do you have for Rick?
Well, actually, I'd like, do you mind if we have Rick just kind of introduce himself?
Oh, yeah.
Perhaps don't know and give us some background about yourself, Rick.
Forgot that. Dumb. Dummy.
Pretty simple. Got out of high school, took my motorcycle out to Colorado, came back, needed a job. My brother-in-law was on night watch at the firehouse, and he said, "Why don't you join the fire department?" So I did in 1970, September 14th. And stayed there. They put me through paramedic school in 1972. In 1973, I made my first mistake. I changed departments and went from a really great department to a unique department. Within a stone's throw of my firehouse, there were 5 strip joints. There was one on either side of the firehouse, 3 across the street, and a couple down the other way. So it was a different environment than I was used to. And we ran a lot and we had a lot of fire. So from that perspective, it was good. A couple years later, I promoted, and then God only knows why. Oh, I think I do know why. I went to a chemistry hazmat class and a hazmat transportation class on my own, and they walked in and said, "We're starting a hazmat team, and you're going to be in charge." So that was it. 1983. It was going to be the county. I'm in a Lake County, Illinois, and it's a MABUS division. So we're MABUS Division 4, and it's divided. The county's divided in 4 like quadrants, like battalions. And it was going to be just one quadrant in the southeast corner, which is down by Cook County. And instead, it went to a countywide deal. So we went from an 8-department hazmat team to a 26-department hazmat team, which is like herding cats, 26 different fire chiefs. And then after we got it established, it was a couple of years after that, Division 5, which is McHenry County to our west, asked if they could get into it. So we absorbed them. We went from 450 square miles with 700,000 people to about 1,000 square miles with about 1,000,001, and 3 squads. And it was a good deal. It was a good program. It was the first regional one in our area. And I've been doing this a while, and I haven't heard anybody that started a regional hazmat team before 1983. But we drew from New York. I forget who it was, but the glowworm was on the side of the rig there, and they helped us out. We did a lot with Houston. So the year after we started our hazmat team, I went out to the Montgomery County Conference, and, happenstance, we sat down to lunch, and it was Max McRae from Houston and Bill Hand and Jerry Gray from San Francisco, Van Quinn from Anchorage, Pat Walsh from DC. So a lot of really good hazmat guys. And so that's where I started to be able to ask people questions, because before that, we were flying blind. There was no NFPA, there was no OSHA, HAZWOP, or anything to go from. It was really a learning experience at that point. And when we finally got to the correlation test, our program got a 98%. So we were pretty happy that we hit all the points, even though we didn't know what we were doing back then.
So I got a question, because I hear people talk, and over again, they keep mentioning very similar dates. It seems like the people from the starters, the grandfathers of hazmat, it's all like 1982, 1983, 1984. Chemicals have been around a lot longer than that. So what the freak happened in the world at that time that made, because like the fire department, and I'm sure mine is not the only one, they are only reactionary, right? Like the fire department doesn't do anything unless it's a knee-jerk reaction. So what the hell happened that everybody in the country had a knee-jerk reaction between 1982 and 1984 and started a hazmat team?
So when I went on as a rookie, I'm looking at equipment, and on the squad, I pull out these boxes, and they were the old Acid Master suits. And I'm like, what are these for? And they go, well, we had Sara Lee and some big plants. And so, if we have a chemical spill, but nothing was organized. And then I forget when it was exactly, but we had a dump fire where somebody had gone literally to the dump, and they put barrels and lit them on fire. And I was on the first engine in. We pulled in, and you got to go up this little hill so you can't see what you're going to find. And then you come over the crest, and it's bright red smoke come out of this fire. And I was a lieutenant then. I said, I don't know what it is, but I ain't going near it, because smoke ain't supposed to be bright red. We called dispatch, and they said, okay, we'll send a hazmat trooper out. And so the Illinois State Police had truck inspecting hazmat troopers. An hour later, lights and siren, this guy pulls up coming from Elgin. And that was I think that was like the impetus to say, we need something in-house to do. And that's when they really started to say, we need to form, a team to do it. Jacksonville did it, I don't know, 1978, 79.
Wow.
Houston had done it in 79. I don't know why, that early 80s was such a big thing, but I think it was just like catching on, kind of like paramedics started in the early 70s, and then in the early 80s, hazmat.
Like just enough shit was happening on a regular basis that everyone kind of realized at the same time, oh crap, we need to do something about this.
I think so. we had a series of bad incidents that I think together kind of all brought it to the head and said, you know, the 8-inch high pressure gas main wasn't it. We had a PCB transformer pop and just about ignite an engine company going on wires down. You know, things like that all happened. And then somebody said, we need to have more education. And so that's when we said, we're going to start a hazmat team. So
how did the various, you're talking a lot of this 78, 79, 82, like, before NFPA, was it really just kind of, like you said, people of like-mindedness just kind of sitting around randomly starting to bullshit that kind of formed the start of the standards and moving forward? Like, were you guys just sitting around and being like, wow, this is kind of screwed up, shouldn't we all be on the same page? Or was there always kind of a push for standardization?
No, I think in my case, I had about 6 months where I didn't know anybody and I was on my own and really just trying to do the best we could. But then when I started meeting the other folks, we did form that network. I mean, I still talk to these guys today, 35 years later, kind of that first tier of people. And then, the second tier, the third tier, we're probably on the, I don't know, 5th or 6th ring by now. But yeah, I think, like New York, for example, I didn't really know anybody there at first, but I met John Norman teaching at Fire College. And then I went to the Cameo conference and this big dude sits down next to me, kind of like, on the airplane where he's going to take my seat.
Or both seats next to you?
FDNY, and Phil became a resource. And so I think we all kind of started, trading information. There was a lot of industry help. We had some great chemical plants that helped us out tremendously.
How did that come into being? You very rarely see things like fire department, a fire department and an industry coming together. Where did that partnership start? Was there any leading events that happened that squished them together? Okay, so it wasn't just like somebody's random idea, like, hey, I know this guy down at the plant, let's see what he knows. Like, things happened and it kind of squished the two communities together?
Yeah. One of the facilities, who shall remain nameless, had a major incident and they wanted to be involved. So they actually became a MABUS member so they could be involved. They have their own fire department on site. And that was on one side of the county along the lakefront. And then there was another one almost on the opposite side of the county that was a big chemical plant, and they had an incident. So they found out about what we were doing. They said, hey, we want to help. So both of those set up like training grounds for us. And we started off, so the mandate from the chiefs was 10% of the personnel. So we were supposed to do about 140 people. I think we ended up with 120 at the end.
To be trained in hazmat or to be on the team. Okay.
On the team. That was going to be about 10% of the firefighters or the fire personnel. And we put them through our own course because we didn't have a course then, but it was an 80-hour course. And then we added a couple of modules to that. So we ended up at 112 hours. But everybody in the 4 battalions wanted to be first. And we couldn't do it. So we had to do part 1, and then part 1 around, and then part 2. So everybody was kind of on track. I knew John Eversole back then, and I asked him if he wanted to help out, which he did. And Chicago didn't have a hazmat team yet. So John and I taught classes like almost endlessly. I think we had 500 plus hours of classes for this in the first year to get everybody up and going. And then it was just, we said, well, we're going to have a refresher program. So we started that. And, we had mandatory hours. So everybody had to have their mandatory time in. Then the state came along and the state fire academies at the University of Illinois, Fire Service Institute. And they came up and they did propane training with us with their trailer. And then we all sat in my living room one night and said, Paul Morrison was the FSI guy. And he said, why don't you guys come with us? So we did that. John and I started teaching the fire academy classes there. And then Paul came to me and said, hey, would you sponsor a National Fire Academy chemistry class at your station? Because the Fire Academy wanted to do one off-site. And we said, yeah, because that's how we got our specialist rating. So Frank Fire came out and did 2 weeks of training at my fire department. And we got, I think it was 30 or 35 of our guys got to specialist level, which was good for us. Then sitting next to some people, and they said, well, would you do a cameo class? And we said, yeah, we would take anything at that point.
Right.
Industry was pretty good. We had some help from government people, that were looking for places to go to do training. And we were lucky. My hazmat chief was a great guy, God rest his soul, but he said, yeah, take anything you can get. A few years later, when he's switched out and we got a new deputy, he was the same way. And he's like, yep, you're running it. Do whatever you got to do to get these guys trained and keep them trained. So from that perspective, I think we were pretty lucky. We had a lot of support, and it was literally the fire chiefs that pushed it, not the other way around.
You keep your finger on the pulse as far as training around the country. How do you think the training has evolved? I mean, obviously there was good, solid training back then, but we were teaching things we knew as we were building the plane as we flew it. And I think, like today, today, I think we're a little bit more in control. We've had a couple of upgrades. We had a new paint job. Do you think that today's training is more concise? Is it an improvement? Do you think people are better off being in this generation of hazmat responders than they were back then?
Well, by far, but John and I used to laugh because our class that we did, a lot of classes, we killed 23 firefighters in the class from various incidents. We had no positive enforcement. It was all, don't do this, don't do that. This guy got killed doing this, be careful for this. We went back to Shreveport and Kingman and all the ones you don't do, and there was no manual. So I kept our original manual. It was called Street Smart Hazmat from 1983. What's evolved since then is better manuals. We didn't have any AV back then, so we've got now some, great videos and programs like that. And I think the instructors are better because we were flying by the seat of our pants back then, We're trying to teach chemistry to firefighters who they had to volunteer to be there. So that was one good thing, but you're trying to teach guys, vapor pressure and vapor density and all this stuff. So we did a lot of experiments.
Guys that
kicked out
of high school just started like, I don't get what you're talking about.
A lot of it. Yeah. Yeah. We did a physics class and guys would get up and walk out and take a break. And it's like, I haven't been in school in 20 years, but Bobby, in answer to your question, I do believe that it's better now because I think we have really good examples and we have really good instructors now. Having said that, I will go out on a limb and say, I think there's some excellent programs, and yet I still go around and I see some that I feel bad for them because they say, hey, we're a hazmat team. And then you start to talk and you realize, they don't have any calls. Right. They don't need a hazmat team to begin with, but they
have no support.
They have no support. They have no budget. It's not a inexpensive deal. And, when HAZWOPER came out, I went to a meeting down in Chicago and I actually said to this lady from OSHA, I said, well, you realize that Illinois is not an OSHA state, so we're not covered by OSHA. And she looked at me and said, well, do you realize that you're covered under EPA? And I went, oh, shit. We had to do physicals because we didn't do physicals before that. So Go back to your boss and say, hey, it's $500 a guy for 120 people. So we had some rough spots, but yeah, I think it's better now. And the one thing that I think is good now is you do have OSHA, this is what you have to do, but you also have NFPA, I'll call it 472 forever because that's me, but you do have that, here's how you do it. So that's what I think we were lacking. So today, yeah, they've got a much better deal.
So Rick, on the kind of on the subject of instructors, I remember several years back, I ran into you in an elevator. I don't know if you remember this, but you asked me to come out to your conference.
You're the guy.
Which I was just like, I was very floored. But your conference, which has, my understanding, is one of the longest running conferences, consecutive, perhaps. What interests me, and I've never asked you this, is what made you decide to do a hazardous materials conference? How did you go about that? And what's the course been through? Because it's been 30, I'm just guessing, 34 some odd years. Give us the timeline on that and what you were thinking and what happened.
So first of all, where was this elevator we were in?
I think it was Baltimore, I believe.
Oh, okay.
And yes.
So
He was wearing a polka dot dress. Maybe that would better.
thank you.
No, it wasn't polka dot. It was stripes. I don't wear
Stripes.
polka. I wear
Sorry.
stripes.
Sorry.
Stripes this way because I'm too skinny. I wear them this way.
Hey, Mike,
Yes,
Come on.
love.
was
We've
his,
talked about this before.
Was it what?
was his name?
We've talked about this before. Come on.
All right. So John Eversole and I started doing teaching and traveling around together. And he goes, hey, Rockville, Maryland, Montgomery County out there where Warren Isman was. And I had Warren out to do a class for us, so I knew him. He said, let's go out to the conference out there. So we did. John goes, Chicago's not going to, he worked for Chicago. They're not going to pay for his way, but my department would pay for a room. So he goes, we'll room together, typical Chicago guy. We'll room together. You just pay for it. So we roomed together for about half a night. He snored so loud, I bought another room, got him out of there. But we went to that conference and we started teaching, and it was probably 4 years maybe. And the people that ran that conference, it was like 150, 175 people. Now they're getting a lot of people from the East Coast. And they said to me, why don't you do one out by you? Take the load off of us, because people are coming from California. That was the only conference. And so I went back to my bosses and I said, hey, we need to do this. This would be a really good thing. And my hazmat chief was a great guy, but he was concerned. And his question was, is there any chance we could lose money doing it? And I'm like, I don't think so, but I guess there's a chance. And he said, I don't know then. So 1985, I broke my leg at a fire. I'm off for a few months and I get my settlement check from Workman's Comp, and my darling wife, and I will tell everybody, you need to have this darling wife behind you to do this. She takes this check and she says, hey, you wanted to do a hazmat conference. Why don't you use this money to do it? And I'm thinking, holy cow, I got little kids and a mortgage and everything. And she's, well, yep, we'll do it.
Of course.
Yeah, I didn't think about it a lot. And so we did it. And we had, I think, 88 people show up. And so we said, well, let's try it again the next year. That was 89. So in 90, we did it again and we doubled. We had like 190 or something come up. And then the next year we doubled. So we knew, it was good. And the funny part is, for firefighters, at that point, my other bosses came back to me and said, hey, we would like to get in on this thing now.
Too late.
Well, I work for them. I said, well, let me see let me think about this. So now I'm getting to 1993 when I retire. I got about a year left. Now it's, KMA. I don't care anymore. And they go, hey, are you going to get us in on that? And I go, nope. I put the money out. You ain't getting in. Too bad. So it's a privately owned and run deal. And I can do it the way we want to do it. And so, yeah, it's been 33 years. And our joke, Jeff, is it's the longest consecutive running because, Montgomery County stopped doing theirs. Virginia did it before us, but they've had a couple of years, the hurricane and then last year with COVID. So it's kind of a joke. And I teach at those and I love those guys, but it's kind of a joke. But yeah, it's been 33 years and, I've already got the conference hall and everything at the Hilton done for the 34th.
Wow.
No, man.
Wow. So in terms of like getting back to like the instructors and stuff, and I've heard through a bunch of people that I chat with my book that they get so much information from these conferences, and the instructors are great. I mean, that's really how we kind of all, I mean, for the most part, that's kind of how we all met, for at least in person. But it's really interesting how we meet these people, and the hazmat community is so small, and the instructors are really good. Do you think that that's a good outlet for people for hazmat continuing education and getting other information?
Yeah, I mean, it's evolved from, there were 4, maybe 5 big conferences 20 years ago. And now a lot of states have, kind of a local conference, which is a good resource, which, I wholeheartedly endorse. There's still probably, a half a dozen national ones where my thing is, I want to bring in people that aren't from your locale, where, you get to hear different ideas and talk to people that may not do it your way, maybe have some new ideas for you. And that's what I think you get from the national conferences. But I still think it's good to have the local, regional, state ones, because, that's the people you work with. And we always brought in, what we considered, who's the best guys.
I have a question.
Okay.
We said it. It's like the crazy word. When you say the word, everybody loses their mind. Like Pee Wee Herman's, video and everything like that. You say the word COVID, everybody starts losing their minds. But how do you, like, we took a nosedive. Everybody pulled back the curtain, stopped the operation for COVID. There was a few like yourself that pushed through using certain different platforms to go virtual. Do you see going forward, as a guy that runs a conference, do you see it going forward where we completely abandon that whole hybrid or online thing and just going back to in person? Or do you see a mixture going forward for the future?
So personally, there's nothing like in person, and not just in person at the workshops, because you kind of get that virtually, but after the workshop, at the bar, at the dinner. That's why we do our dinner on Friday night, at the lunches. So I don't think there's anything better than that, than in person. But having done, 2 now virtuals because of COVID, it did pretty well. I mean, the bonus to that was we got a whole lot more people virtually than we could get that could afford or would be allowed to come, in person. And I'm talking, we had people from South America and Europe and, the Belgium guys and all these guys that would never be allowed to come to our conference. So in that regard, I think it's good. If I had to choose, I'd definitely pick in person. I'd rather have, 300 people in person than 1,000 people virtually, because I think the experience is better. The trick's going to be, is there a way for us, us, the community, to take the best of both worlds, maybe have an in-person conference, but provide some virtual for people that are never going to get the money or permission or whatever you want to call it to show up in person? That's the trick that I'm looking at.
Yeah.
That's
Tough
And
thing to do.
for you though, how was it as a person that runs a conference? What's your preference on them?
his mustache was black 6 months ago. Let's just put it that way.
I think I'm leading. I know where he's going, but I just want to hear it out of the horse's mouth.
Well, it's funny because the other day I found my original hazmat team ID, and my mustache is black. My hair is black. I'll show you guys that one day. But honestly, it's way harder doing virtual. I did mine maybe different, but I did 4 sessions a day for 2 weeks straight. And then we repeated them all. They were recorded, but I still had to be there. So virtually, no pun intended, a month of running the board, making sure everything was running, and then on the reruns, making sure all that was going, which the reruns were easier, but you still got to be there. But at least you can run up and, get another beer or something while it's going.
Yeah.
The virtual is 10 times harder to do than it is to do the in-person. When we started doing the in-persons, we were all over the place. But after we got a rhythm and figured out how to do it, it's not as bad. I mean, we have a checklist now, and we just bang it out. And
I have to say, from an instructor's point of view, the virtual was incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
It wasn't difficult to give the information.
No feedback.
It was difficult. Yeah, I had no feedback. I had no way of interacting. I had no way of being able to look at somebody's face and like, you understood what I said, or like you're totally confused and I'm speaking a different language. I couldn't make fun of anybody. They couldn't make fun of me. Like there was
couldn't hear them.
What's up?
You just couldn't hear them.
Yeah. Well, that's part of the problem as well. But it was amazing. That interaction is so critical to how we teach, that when it was taken away, it was so incredibly difficult. And I kept thinking, wow, like this is probably really easy for that crappy instructor that just reads the PowerPoint and doesn't care about their audience, doesn't care if anybody's understanding, doesn't care if they're being engaged or engaging. And I have to say, I found being in the virtual conference incredibly difficult.
I did too, because I did 3 or 4 presentations as opposed to just monitoring them. But you look and, you're not seeing any faces. You're not getting any questions. I mean, we got a few, but nowhere near what you'd be able to get in class. And even if you're not getting questions from students, you can interrogate and ask questions through the class, and you can tell whether they're getting it or not. I got up early this morning and went and did a hands-on refresher for technician, and it was like, I've done a few since, we restarted, but it was like a breath of fresh air. Like, man, this was a great class today, because I laid out 10 different cups full of different things and had them monitoring and, why are you doing this? And then we did it hands-on. Then we got into suits and did it. So it's a whole different ball game. And I agree 100%, Mike. That's where our problem's going to be if we try to do virtual or even hybrid in the future. We have to have that back and forth or it's going to be worth it.
There just needs to be a slight more advancement in technology where, you're literally, I need like 5 screens in front of me. I need to be able to see the faces of each person. I need to be able to have them interact easier with me on a virtual level.
I think we could do something along that lines where you're in front of the class at the Hilton, you're doing your class, but we're broadcasting it, but you're in front of a live audience. We did an active shooter thing last week, and at the last minute, with this upsurge, the company said, we're not sending any people, we're going to do it all virtual. So me and my instructor up there doing an active shooter class with nobody in the room except for an AV tech guy. Now, that's hard to do,
Especially the AV guys.
I think, I could definitely.
The primary AV guy couldn't show up, so he sent his backup.
I definitely think that's the way it's going to go. I would hate to see that happen. I think we've all been to these, as instructors, we've been to these conferences, and we've had people come up afterwards and they want to meet us or talk to us just to say hi because we've chatted somewhere, or they want to ask a question because they didn't really, maybe it didn't pertain exactly to that or whatever, but that in-person learning is just, there's just really no substitute for it, in my opinion. I'm hoping it comes back. I don't know if it'll be all the way back. I don't know if it'll be a combination. I mean, it would be nice for a combination. You could get the people that, like Rick said, that are in South America or Belgium or Poland or whatever, that want to look in too. But that in-person thing, meeting people and stuff like that, you can't beat that at all.
You know who you don't get virtually, and everybody has them. The guy that's too shy, embarrassed, doesn't think he knows enough, so he doesn't want to ask that question in class. But he's the guy that'll come up to you at the break or after class and say, hey, and I always think in my head, why didn't you ask this during class? But I understand why they don't. You do not get that virtually. That it's done. it's gone. They got an email, but I didn't get too many emails asking questions from last year or this year virtually.
Yeah. No, I agree. Well, hopefully it'll be back next year.
I think so. We're going to do it. The only thing that stops us is either the state, says no, or something with the hotel says no.
The hotel, the venue. Yeah.
The venue's going to do it if they can, and we'll figure that out. Our fallback this year was the hotel was going to take the entire ballroom and seat the seats 6 feet apart so we could get 300 people. So we used half the ballroom normally. They were going to take the whole ballroom for us because nobody else was renting it, right? And spread everybody out. And then they were going to set up 3 cameras so everybody could see on 3 screens whoever's talking. So, you're in the way back corner. You're still going to be able to see them on a 12-foot screen.
What if we just what if we combined a lot of these thoughts, and instead of doing a hazmat conference, if things start to shut down, we do like a hazmat protest? And
that's a great idea.
And instead of the guy in the front of the bullhorn yelling a slogan, he's teaching hazmat as we're walking down the street.
Yeah, and we're putting our fists in the air.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all you got to do.
I like it.
Get back to me with that one when you figure that one out.
I will. I think we're going to do that. The hazmat guys, hazmat protest.
Well, I'm curious about what everybody says. So leave your comment in the Facebook or YouTube channels, or even email us. Any one of us. You could find us on the websites, and you can find Jay-Z. Just email us. We'll find you. Rick Emery, thank you for coming on. Excellent stuff. How do they get in touch with you?
Probably email's best. It's rick@emerysafety.com. It's EMERYSAFETY.com. I've been doing this full time now since I retired in 93. So 20, going on 28, 29 years. I still love it. This is the best job anybody could have, especially my boss is great. He lets me take any time off, lets me do here. But yeah, I think I like talking to people. Today I'm teaching this class today, and I got a text from a guy, and he saw it on Facebook, and he says, "Where is this conference?" And so I typed back real quick. He's 2 towns away from me, but he works 2 counties west of me, and he says, "I never heard of it. I want to go."
Oh my God!
Yeah, so I'm up for answering questions. I get a ton of questions about NFPA documents. OSHA. I don't mind. That's my full-time job now, and so if that's for industry,
Well, and I was going to say that, my go-to NFPA OSHA guy is Rick. I don't know if I know anybody that knows more about NFPA guidelines and OSHA standards than Rick. He's just really, really up on it. So if you need any information about that, talk to Rick. He's a wealth of information.
I've been on the NFPA committee now for 21 years, and the IFC hazmat committee for 14 years, I think it is. It's like even a blind squirrel catches a nut once in a while. I had to absorb something during that period of time, but I would end it with saying, when OSHA came out with HazWhopper, NFPA wasn't out yet. Tom Seymour was smart. He said to the hazmat committee for NFPA, "I'll have this out in OSHA before you get it out, through NFPA." And he told me, "Sit down and read it." And I literally took a ruler and went line by line. And then, you're 10 lines down and you don't get it, so you got to go back and reread it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to know the playbook, and OSHA and NFPA is the playbook. So if you don't know what's in 472, 475, 473, 1072, they're cramming all, or they're combining it all. They probably wouldn't like it if I said cramming. They're combining it all into 470 to make it, one-stop shop. But you gotta know what's in there, or how do you run a program? 475 wasn't around years ago, but a bunch of people, on the committee put all their thoughts into how do you manage a hazmat program to create that document. So if you're starting up now, or maybe you're just the new hazmat guy, go through that document and it'll give you a heads up and a head start for a lot of information.
Good stuff. I appreciate you coming on. We appreciate you coming on. Sure. Godspeed to Bob Kosh out there. And we will see you next month. That's it.
Where are we going to be?